Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Arun, and you have started watching the AI with Arun show today. So, my guest today is a very, very special one. He is a rock star. His name is Arjun Chatterjee, and Arjun is the founder and CEO of Runtime Solutions. So, how does Runtime Solutions work with your clients? What kind of problems are you guys trying to solve?
So there are three verticals within which we work, right? The first and the oldest vertical is technology. The second is marketing, and the third is innovations. And I'll come to all three of them in brief. So technology, when we started, we were doing like web-based, like a lot of corporate websites. That was the obvious thing, right, which we started with. But that's not where the big opportunities was lying. I think there was a lot of work happening on e-commerce. So we actually built what I think is India's first musical instrument e-commerce site for furtados
Hmm.
back in 2010. That's what we built and we launched. And I remember when we first started, the quarterly sales was 5 lakhs online.
Hmm.
And within I think 6 months to a year, we had pushed it up to 50 lakhs. So it
Wow,
was a 10x
like
growth in
10x.
under a year. So that was really exciting, because we were creating something from scratch, ground up, and tech applications in the web space like that, right? And those were the niches, right, which you had to kind of find and work with. For Mastech, which was a software company, we actually built a corporate website for them, which had a centralized content management system.
Mm-hmm.
So earlier they have a US entity, they have a UK entity, and an India entity. So all three of them kind of worked independently of each other, and you needed multiple teams to run all of them, and you had to update information across. Uh, and it was a manually intensive sort of a job to do that. So we actually created a unified entity from where you could update UK, US, and India for that as well. So that's another thing which we did in 2010. The first big client or the first big project which we got at Runtime was actually building a social network,
Okay.
right? And this is when
Mhm.
Facebook was still in beta,
Right, right. Yeah.
right? So that again became like a very exciting, opportunity for us where we built it out. It was called Socialize. It was initially
Mhm.
called Youth Mash, and then it became Socialize. And again, it had everything like putting up images, putting up videos, putting up, uh, all the effects, and what became photo filters and reels, and there were all some version of it going around in there. And it took a long time. We kind of built it out, rebuilt it, versioned it, and so on. And then my client, Vignesh, ended up becoming a great friend, and eventually ended up working with me in Runtime. Like he
Mhm.
became my product head guy, down the line, because eventually that didn't take off. And I also social media handles. I mean, we
Mhm.
created it and ran it for many many months, and that then took off. So again, we do the entire thing here as well. We do the planning, the concept, the creative, the media buying, media execution, optimization, all the way up to analytics. So we kind of own that whole ecosystem for the clients that we kind of work with. So
Mhm.
the underlying philosophy is the same. The context or the vertical is a bit different. The third vertical, which is innovations, widely abused word, but we'll still wade into it. So basically, broadly, anything that works, like anything in emerging technology, which is helping a business or a marketing to solve any of their challenges, is what we call innovations. So we kind of worked in AR, in VR. We've created a lot of experiences. We've done immersive experiences. Um, AI is, of course, a big part of this now, where we are exploring
Right.
how it is going to get embedded into things, and good news is we've been, fooling around with it for a while. So this third vertical is slightly more in the lab area. It's not, because sales cycles are a bit uncertain in this area, because
Mhm.
people take time to articulate what they need. There is some time to market or time to proposal, around how it is going to land. It also doesn't land directly in somebody's vertical. It's somewhere in the middle of marketing, tech, and so on. So, I
Right.
mean, there are various pieces around this, but it's also one I'm close to in my heart, and want to keep churning out interesting things from there.
Yeah.
So these are broadly the three innovations, the three verticals that we work with. We are headquartered in Mumbai. I have a tech delivery center out of Kolkata, and another office out of Nagpur as well. So
Great.
that's
Great.
how it's structured right now. And we work with the
Great.
partner ecosystem across the world, across the US, UK, Australia, Dubai.
That's great. So that's fascinating. I mean, the way you structured the company across technology, across digital marketing, and I did not know that you guys did about AI in a bit. So how do you see the application of AI in, largely the way I understand it is AI is part of so-called your innovation, right? It's more in the lab.
Yes.
But I'm sure you are
Yes.
seeing application of that in the technology side, in the digital media marketing side. How are you seeing the application of AI in all these verticals?
Right. So I'm going to answer this in two or three different ways, right? So the first bit I'm going to answer is going to be the external facing part of AI, which I believe from an industry standpoint is very important. Then I'll come to what we are doing at Runtime. So I think one of the biggest areas that all service-led businesses, such as us or tech or any professional services-based business currently in India and across the world is facing is the war for talent,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
You rightly said,
Because
with Google, is a fresh guy coming out of campus. He or she would love to work with Google, right? So why, like you said, why a small company? So you got to fight for talent.
it's a war. It's a war for
Yeah.
talent, and we recognize this because all of us are growing essentially on the basis of the best teams that we can staff. Right,
Mm,
that's what it is. Because technology itself is very transferable. We don't have those kind of IPs and stuff like that, which are there in our industry, and it boils down to how your talent pipeline is really going to be managed, or is being managed today and in the future. So I think one of the areas where I personally believe AI is going to play a big role, and is slowly we are experimenting with various things already. So one of the products that we are building is, if somebody is applying for a job, okay, there are certain values which we seek across the board in candidates who come in, and there are certain technical or skill based kind of areas that we seek. So there's some tests that we have created where anybody who wants to apply first has to take a series of these tests. Okay, and it could be different for if you're a product manager or if you're a designer or if you're a developer or whichever. So the whole idea is you plug in and you take these series of tests. You have to take each test, end to end. You could take a break and come back and do the others, and then that creates a certain profile.
mhm.
Okay, if it's fitting into what we are looking at, then we push them forward to the next step. Okay, and eventually do a physical meeting thereafter, right?
Right.
So this is something which we are actually kind of implementing or trying to get into our thinking, which is the whole talent pipeline has to be addressed in a slightly more intuitive way, so that we don't end up chasing the wrong people and the wrong people don't end up chasing and joining us. I think
Right.
at both levels, right?
Yeah.
There is one product which a friend of mine has built, which is so fun fact, 79% of people who are interviewed, the first line of interviews are actually rejected.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
That's 79% of cost, time, resources of HR and business teams.
Yeah.
In many
Yeah.
cases, largely HR, but sometimes business teams also get involved. So there is a product now which, after 10,000 plus interviews, they have actually created an AI experience where the person can take this interview via a bot,
Mm,
and
mm.
it exactly mimics the question that would have been asked. And kind of the next set of questions and answers are actually in line with what a reasonably large sample size of folks have done, you know, thereby eliminating 79% of candidates who are not actually relevant to you, and then
Mm.
pushing the 21 odd percent forward to you, and which you can then meet in person and take it forward. So I personally think that this is an area which, as we grow at Runtime, as the market demands us to become, leaner, become more responsive, because sometimes clients come back to us and say, hey, we need this guy ASAP, or yesterday. I'm sure you've been in
Yeah. Yeah.
discussions
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So I think this is a way in which we can create that pipeline.
Mm.
Okay. Also create the ecosystem saying, okay, if somebody got a score where he's not ready to be a product manager, let's say yet, we kind of bung him into an assistant project manager or
Mm,
product manager. Then if the values are kind of in sync,
mm,
so there could be an out of turn hiring. Why? Because we find this guy can grow into something going forward.
right, right.
So I think these sort of uh, things which individuals do manually at some point.
Mm,
Um, of course, the moment of truth decision for a hire will have to be done with people, the HR team and the tech team and the business team, etc. But I think the pathway to it can become a lot smoother and a lot more streamlined. So
right, right.
I personally feel in a country like India, in an industry like ours, which is software, which is hiring and it's big, this is going to become very very important, and AI has will become relevant. The third thing is referencing,
Mhm.
because post COVID, what we found is that uh, the tech talent uh, ended up becoming the most sought after talent. Because when you say work from home, you can't build a car from home, right?
Yeah.
You can't make mobile phones sitting at home, right? So what you can actually do to create value is software and development. So there was a huge sort of bidding war, if you may, for that sort of talent, right? And that drove that market completely wacko. So how that has unbundled in a way is that a lot of people end up coming through the processes because they know how to sort of crack that system, and then we find that there's not a good fitment post joining.
Mm, mm,
So so there is going to be a referencing layer which has to become much more organized, much less manual. I mean, I think it's happening to some degree already with emailing and this, that, with previous employers and whichever. But I think, again, disruption through AI can happen because it's large scale volume handling.
right. Yeah.
So this, I think, is my thought at an industry level. What is going to happen, what we are slowly with baby steps trying to adopt, right?
Mhm.
Uh, from a company level, coming to runtime, I think there are two verticals where we are, of course, using it. One is tech and marketing. So, like in tech, I think a lot of products that we are building are now, we want to AI proof it as we go forward. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, the product example which I gave you, which is the psychology test piece of it, is something we
Right.
are already kind of building in some shape and form, and we
Mhm.
want to productize it as we go forward. Um, One of the edtech customers that we work with, they are again at scale hiring a lot of. I mean, they're recruiting students who are doing online courses from the IIMs, IITs, etc. I'll not name it because it's not closed
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So
Right, right.
so basically, they have huge sales teams. 500,000 plus sales team who are continuously talking to students, try to convert them to do online courses. So we are trying to build a tool which allows sales forecasting to happen at scale,
Mm, okay.
right?
Oh,
So
no, that's a very interesting use case.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
with
very
so many
interesting one.
uncertainties around it. Yeah.
There are many uncertainties, but the pipeline is interesting because you already spent millions of marketing dollars in creating that the leads.
Mm,
Now, moment of truth is that, hey, I may not want to do this course now, or I'm not able to find time now. But the intent was always there, right? So,
mm,
of course, you have your remarketing and retargeting and all of that stuff anyway going on. But I think just landing it uh, when that person is going to have to do it requires slightly more better tools than, let's say, an ad manager can do for you
yeah.
today. So you would know that January is when one of the batches start, the next one is in May, maybe the next one is in November, whichever. So, and if he's missed an IIT, maybe the second one he might want to do is the regional engineering college or whichever, stuff like that. So I think there's a bit of um, intelligence which can be added here to to kind of hit those sort of forecasting numbers, for the sales teams to really uh, optimize what is already in the system.
Mhm, mhm,
So that's a product which I think I'm quite excited about building. And again, in the recruitment space, we are thinking of stuff. So I think broadly these are two areas, two specific use cases we use. So there are three or four pieces there. One is performance marketing, which is your whole ad managers and ad campaigns that you have, right? And that has always been a data driven science or a data driven algorithm, right? So I think there's a lot of work in programmatic advertising which has already happened, where you know that if you run a campaign in the morning when people are traveling between 8 and 9 or 8 to 9:30, 10, the chances of people clicking your ads are much higher. Then
Yeah.
there's a sort of a dip, and then again lunchtime it goes up 1:30 to 2:30. Then again post 6:37 is when it goes up. So I think this is something which we anyway were doing manually. I think you can sort of use pre-programmed sort of sequences and campaigns so that you can kind of work in that way. There's a huge debate in that world on attribution, right? So typically, what happens is that a Meta, which is Instagram and Facebook, is given the credit for creating awareness and brand awareness and top of the funnel, what we call recognition, right? And Google is like bottom of the funnel, right, where you do actual conversion of the product. And since most brands are using both in some blended fashion, who do you give credit to the sale for? Who do you
Mm.
attribute it? So I think there is again a big sort of debate which is playing out, and I think both these guys don't want this debate to be answered for obvious reasons because in the gray there lies a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
So I think, but programmatic is allowing you to kind of take a reasonable stab at answering that question. So that's where I feel some interesting AI models can emerge. We are using some. We are looking forward to more around that. So that's one. Second, of course, is the whole SEO piece of it, which I think has been very disrupted because of generative AI. Because now you don't actually need somebody to write stuff and put stuff out, and you can schedule it and put it out. So Google itself, the algorithm around SEO is something which is under a huge question mark and a cloud, saying if everyone can do this, then how do
Mm.
you rate someone better than anyone else? So I think
Yeah.
this is a useful question which is going to have to be answered in some shape and form. Like, can you identify content which is coming out through bots vis-a-vis actual people? And if so, how do you do a rating on those things?
Mm.
Correct. So I think the Google folks, all the exciting conversations are going on around, how it can happen and design work, etc. So I like you got your Sora, which is able to create videos, which is able to create 3D based experiences and so on. We have been using it uh, for fun stuff so far. Like I'll give you an example. I'll share that with you also later. I think you'll probably appreciate that. In Runtime's 13th year anniversary last year, we created a song,
Mm.
using Mid Journey, and it was composed to the tune of a Shakespearean sonnet,
Oh, okay.
which we played out. So I think that sort of stuff is interesting. Um, I had recently attended design entertainment space is going to see a lot of experimentation. It's going to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
a lot of stuff, which is going to happen.
Yeah.
And
No, and
how how much of it is going to land in a commercially relevant space? The book is yet to be written, I think.
right, right. Yeah, and that's where the unknown is, right? But then the writing is still on the wall. All these spaces are up for disruption. AI.
Models across industry, whether it is in India, stuff like agriculture, health, social justice. I think these are big problems to solve in India. They require working with government departments and government teams. So it's a bit slow sometimes, converting it. Education is also an area which we do a lot of work in. So just to see how we can use this sort of data points where, you've grown up in India.
This channel, and it's fascinating experience. Learning from you, your journey, and the kind of work that you are doing at Runtime Solutions, and the vision that you have for Runtime Solutions. So very, very fascinating. And thank you so much, Arjun.
Pleasure is mine, Arun. All the best with your show. I hope it becomes a blockbuster. And I do hope the youngsters learn from it, other stakeholders learn from it, because I mean it's important to learn from folks in the industry. So for everyone out there, Arun, great guy, great friend. I hope this show is a magnificent success, and look forward to meeting you in person soon.